like a lot of people, entrepreneurs, I kind of did a little bit of everything at first. And I eventually narrowed down on what I really love to do, and that is branding. Like, I really feel that that is an important step for businesses to take. And I particularly love working with food and bev industry people because I love food and drink, and it's just fun.
Don't we all? Yeah.
So that's kind of the short version of how I got into that. But yeah, I've been an independent designer for, 16 years now.
Welcome back, everyone. You know, when I ran restaurants, I was absolutely obsessed with marketing. I was a relentless marketer, and it wasn't about traditional advertising where, restaurants spend tens of thousands of dollars on radio and print and TV and all these things that you cannot track the return on investment. No, it was more about building a strategic brand from the inside out and turning my staff and my customers into brand evangelists for my business. That is a powerful formula. So I'm really excited. In this week's episode, I'm speaking with a restaurant branding expert, a strategic branding expert. Her name, Amanda Guerassio from Studio Guerassio. And we're going to start with the very basics. We're going to talk about positioning. We're going to talk about all the elements that go into a powerful brand: logo, fonts, colors, websites, everything. This is a topic that is so important to every restaurant operator because, as you probably know, I recommend that operators run a business and build a powerful brand, not just run a restaurant. So let's listen on to this week's episode.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Rockstars, let me tell you about 7 Shifts. 7 Shifts is a modern labor management platform designed for restaurateurs by restaurateurs. Effective labor management is more important than ever to maximize profit and success, especially now as restaurants begin to reopen and expand their teams. Trusted by over 500,000 restaurant professionals, 7 Shifts gives you the tools you need to simplify scheduling, easily manage time and attendance, communicate with your team, and retain your talent. Best of all, 7 Shifts integrates with the POS and payroll systems you already use and trust, turning your team into a competitive advantage to your business. Right now, Restaurant Rockstars listeners can get 3 months absolutely free. Get started now at 7shifts.com/restaurant rockstars. That's the number 7, SHIFTS.com/restaurant rockstars to get 3 months of industry leading labor management for free. Now, on with the episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast, and these are engaging topics that help restaurants rock their profits, build their brands, and deliver amazing guest service experiences through their brand. Really excited today. I have Ms. Amanda Guerassio from Studio Guerassio, and she is a brand expert, a brand builder, specializing in food and beverages, other business as well, but she spends a lot of time working in the hospitality space. Welcome to the show, Amanda, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Roger.
Well, that's awesome. I'm really glad you're here. So marketing is something that very few restaurant operators do well, specifically. I call this business one of 1,000 details, and you've got to be everywhere, and you've got to have your hands in every piece of the business to really build that business to its maximum potential. But unless you studied marketing in college and you have a real passion for this stuff, it's just one of those details that are super important. But perhaps restaurant operators are focused on just putting out really amazing food and drink and creating an interior experience through the ambiance. But the marketing is how people find us. It's how people relate to our business. It's how they form images in their minds. It's how we leave positive impressions and certainly get them to come back again and leave positive reviews. So, we're going to cover all that ground in just a moment. But I always start with the backstory of my guest. And, a lot of my guests have worked in the hospitality space for a long, long time. Maybe they were a teenager and they worked at McDonald's or they dishwashed at a country club like I did, but we all got into this business in a different way. So why don't you tell us, what's your backstory, and then how did you come to be a branding expert and help restaurants with that?
Yeah. So I have been interested in art and design since I was little, really. Like, I started playing around in Photoshop and other computer programs in middle school. So when it came time to go to college, graphic design seemed the obvious choice for me, kind of marrying my love of art and technology. So that's what I went to school for. And that's what I've been working in ever since. Like a lot of people, entrepreneurs, I kind of did a little bit of everything at first. And I eventually narrowed down on what I really love to do. And that is branding. Like I really feel that that is an important step for businesses to take. And I particularly love working with food and bev industry people because I love food and drink and it's just fun.
Don't we all? Yeah.
So that's kind of the short version of how I got into that. But yeah, I've been an independent designer for, 16 years now. So
you got a lot of experience then. 16 years experience. Awesome. That's terrific. And you do, of course, help clients. And we're going to get into all about what you do and how you do it. You know, I went to business school in college, undergraduate, as well as an MBA, and I took lots of marketing classes. And the very basics of marketing, I don't even know if they still teach this today, but way back, 30 years ago, whenever the heck it was all about what they called the 4 Ps of marketing. And that would be product, price, place, and promotion. So obviously the product is what we're selling. The price is how much are we charging for this? I mean, all these are the basic elements of marketing. Place, is where you're going to place the advertising or the marketing so that people can find you. And then, of course, promotion. How are you going to promote that? Hopefully building a brand, because again, all these basics don't necessarily touch on brand building, but then it gets into more depth with something called positioning. Can you explain to the audience what that means in the world of branding? What is positioning? We've all heard of mission statements. We all know, it might be written on the wall. This is our mission statement. This is what we believe in. And this is how we train our employees to deliver an experience and all that. But positioning is completely different. Tell us about what that means to you and what it should mean to the audience.
The mission statement, like you said, is the kind of why you're here, like why the business exists. It's kind of internal. It's motivating for the employees and the people that work there. The positioning statement is more outward. So it's basically telling people, why should they choose you? What makes you unique in your market, in your industry? What are you doing differently or better? Or basically, how do you stand out from your competition? What are you offering that nobody else does? And who are you offering it to? Because that can be part of how you're different too. If you're targeting a specific market or a specific type of person, that can be how you do it too. For restaurants, maybe you're targeting a specific income bracket. Maybe you're doing, Italian food in a new way, mixing it with like Asian fusion or something.
Right.
What are you doing?
That's different.
Yeah. The positioning statement really boils down to telling people why they should choose you.
Okay. And it's also the simplicity of it is, what is the heart and soul of what your business is all about, isn't it? It's like we all started our businesses for a reason. I believe this is a really passionate business. I mean, people get into this business for a variety of reasons, but I'm hoping, and I do hear from a lot of my clients and audience, that it really is about passion. And I know COVID turned everything upside down.
Yeah.
But now the passion is really, here's an opportunity to rediscover why you got in this business in the first place. Here's an opportunity to put your business forward in a whole new dimension and direction. If you survive this pandemic and you're still going, kudos to you. It's been a tremendous challenge. But now look at the optimism, the opportunity. Customers are coming back in droves because of the pent-up demand. And now's a chance to give ourselves a fresh start and think about branding our business in a whole different way and setting ourselves. You said it best. How do you set yourself apart from the competition? And it really begins with, what is the heart and soul? You sit down and do some soul searching. And what does your business mean to you? What do you want your business to mean to your guests? What impressions do you want them to form? How do you want them to view your business? How do you want them to talk about your business, either on social media or to friends and family? I mean, that's the essence of what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, that is what I call the core brand of your business. You said heart and soul, core, it's all kind of that same thing. And yes, that is exactly part of what I help my clients figure out. Because a lot of them just haven't taken the time to like sit down and really, put it all on paper, get clear on all these different details. And it's such a useful tool for a business too, because how can you communicate that to anybody if you're not clear on what it is yourself, So that's always the first step, figuring out, like you said, why did you start this business, and not just a business, but this business specifically? Why are you starting this business?
Yeah.
What do you hope to do with it? What are your dreams and plans for it? Like, what do you want to be to people? How do you want, what kind of vibe do you want to get off? What do you want to be known for? How are you different? Like all of those things that you were talking about too. yeah, we sit down and we go through all of that. And it's really a big brainstorming session, essentially. And I take a lot of notes and write it all down.
Yeah. Awesome.
But it's such a useful process.
And you try to get into the heads of your clients as well and figure out who they are as people and how that relates to the business. And then it creates sort of what I call the roadmap to the end result. And sure, a roadmap is this old school way of finding a direction, but there's an old expression, kind of an analogy. It's like, how do you know where you're going? How do you know how to get to where you're going if you don't know where to start or whatever it was? You know where I'm going with that. You really need to get there. You need to know where you want to go, right?
Yeah. You can't hit a target if you don't know what you're aiming for. So
awesome.
Yeah. And I like you calling it a roadmap too, because I do believe it does genuinely act as a roadmap, because once you get that core brand figured out, you can use that to guide all sorts of decisions in your business. So if you know what your values are, what qualities and personality you want your business to have, that plays a big role in, your design decisions, like how you show up visually for your brand. It plays a big role in marketing and messaging, like how you're talking to people, what you're saying. It plays a role in so many things. And it's just, you got to start with that core brand first.
And I think you touched on a really important element of cohesive strategy and consistency in what you're doing. You can't confuse your customers, your guests, by changing every so often, your look, your feel, your business. Everything has to be on brand, on strategy, be cohesive, be easy to understand, and cross over everything you're doing so that a customer or a guest can look at this or look at that and they instantly know what we're talking about. It's your business. So I think that's super important. Let's talk about I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, yes, cohesion builds recognition, and recognition builds trust, and trust builds repeat loyal customers. So, you want to make sure you're showing up the same everywhere, and having a clear core brand and clear brand guidelines helps you do that. So you're not just, throwing some random fonts and colors on a piece just to get it out the door because, you have a daily menu that needs to change and you don't have a template, and you're just throwing it together and every day is different and then nothing looks the same. You don't want to be in that place.
We have a lot of restaurants in our audience that are single location independents, but we also have those that are growth oriented and they're creating multiple locations. Some of them are getting into franchising because they've created a core brand that has that mass appeal. And now they suddenly see it playing in multiple communities and even different states. And, a lot of people are growth oriented, and therein lies the importance of the consistency of the look, but also the consistency of the experience you're providing. And all of that just sort of is wrapped up into one beautiful package, and you help people achieve that. So
yes, exactly.
let's talk about it probably starts with a logo. It's okay, even if you're just starting a new business, it's like the logo is part of the definition of where you're going and what you want to do, and it can be an illustration. It could be a photograph or a graphic representation of the exterior of your building. It could be maybe the concept, the cuisine you serve. It could be any of those things, but a logo is ultra important. What are you seeing for logo trends? And how would you recommend to a new client to create a logo? There's so much that goes into that element.
Yeah, there is a lot. And that is kind of one of the foundational pieces of your visual brand is the logo, because that's kind of everything encapsulated down into one image. So I would say you want your logo to aim for more timelessness than trendiness.
Right. Classic. Yep. Something that's going to stand the test of time, you mean?
Yes. You don't want it to be too busy because it needs to show up a lot of different places. And so, if you've got it, 8 inches big and this gorgeous detailed design, and it looks great. But then when you shrink it down to be avatar size on social media or something, nobody's going to see that. It's just going to look like a blob. So you don't want it to be too busy. You do want to pay attention, and this is part of what I do too, but colors all have meanings and associations with them. Fonts all have personalities and vibes they give off. So once you figure out your core brand, you kind of take those qualities and stuff you want to evoke and use that as a filter for your design. So, look at a font and say, okay, is this giving me the vibe that I want to? Is this saying, high end, or is this saying casual? And kind of run it through that filter to see if it matches what you want your business to be. I wouldn't even necessarily, if you're doing this yourself, if you're DIYing, I wouldn't even bother with like a symbol or an icon or anything. Just a plain word mark in a good clean font will see you through the first couple of years until you can hire a designer. And I do always recommend when you can to hire a professional designer because it is what they do.
Clients have very specific ideas, obviously, of the motivations behind why they started that business and what the business means to them. Does that sometimes get jaded, meaning they're so close to something, they really have such a strong conviction about what the business means to them, but it doesn't always translate to the customer, the guest, and then you sort of have to steer them in that direction? I mean, we're really, again, therein lies the passion again, right? We are so into what we're doing and we're so passionate about it. We want to share that passion with the end user, the guest, right? But they don't necessarily have that same vision. And you need to convince them that what you're offering is unique, is special, is different. It's like, but there's a bridge between those two ideas and they're not always the same, right?
They're not always the same.
What the client or what the restaurant owner, operator, manager thinks, it's like, how do you work with that? I mean, how do you tactfully say, I see where you're going with this, but it's a little confusing to the guest. I think it should be this. I mean, does that happen every once in a while?
It does happen every once in a while. And my process has kind of been built to avoid that. Sure. So I never start the logo design process asking, okay, what do you want? Because then they'll just say, oh, I want, a pizza icon with this font and put it together. And it's like, well, that's not really strategic or going to serve them this. So we always start again with the core brand. And so then once we have all that information, when I present a design concept, I say, okay, this one, is saying this, this, and this about your business, which you said you wanted to say. Do you feel that it captures that? So it's less subjective. It kind of takes their ego out of it.
Yeah. Okay,
so
good.
It's more like, is it, accomplishing the objectives that we said we wanted to accomplish? Mm-hmm. So just tying everything back to the core brand really kind of eliminates that whole process. And the core brand is what they want it to be. That is built on their vision. So it is still capturing, their passion and their vision, but we're being just more strategic about it instead of being tied to some specific visual they had in their head before doing all that.
So this is, of course, a global digital world. And when we as consultants work with clients, they can be anywhere on the planet and we can help them. And I'm sure you do that. What would your process be like in order to meet a client face-to-face, get to know their business if you can't actually travel to the location, if they're not close by, you're not jumping on a plane every 5 minutes and going to, Indonesia to like work with a restaurant owner. But
that would be amazing. But right? I have a toddler. I can't do that at the drop of a hat.
Okay, sure. So. I understand. So I'm trying to, you obviously want to help a client build a brand. Do you request sort of like a video tour of their restaurant, the exterior, the interior, look at menus, look at the current colors? I mean, how are you gathering all this information?
It depends on what stage they're at. So if, like I have a client right now, they're in the middle of build out. They don't even have like an open restaurant yet. So I've actually been consulting on like the mural design and the paint colors and stuff inside, which has been a lot of fun. So we didn't need to do that in that case. But if they're already an established business and they're looking to rebrand, then I take into account everything they already have out there, what their location looks like, if they have the capacity to redo any of the interior, their current branding, all that. And I kind of evaluate that based on what we discover in the core brand exploration and kind of measure, okay, they said they wanted their business to be this, this, and this. Is what they're currently doing measuring up? Usually it's not. Usually there's room for improvement. And so in that case, I make recommendations on what needs to change, the priorities, all that kind of stuff. And then, that's the audit phase. And then if they're hiring me for the design phase too, then I actually do that. So it can include video calls, video tours, photos, past design files for like menus or things. So whatever. I will take as much material as they give me to work with because I always prefer more information to too little.
Are you thinking that, or not thinking, but when you're working with someone new or they're reaching out to you, do they generally already have sort of their colorways and Pantone.
Color
That's
palette.
it, right?
Yeah.
Their color palette. Thank you. Pantone colors. It's blue, it's black, it's orange, it's brown, whatever it is. I mean, have they gone that far, or they're just randomly using certain colors, and maybe they're still doing old school advertising with like magazines and newspapers, and they're just saying, yeah, I'm orange and black, but I don't really have distinct tones of those colors. I mean, let's talk about colors. How does that work?
It's usually not formalized too much. Usually they have like, some colors that they use again and again, but it's maybe not the exact same shade every time, or,
therein lies the consistency, right?
Yeah. Or their
or
font changes every month or so because they're like, oh, it's the holidays, I should use a scripty font or something, something like that.
Sure.
So yeah, that's part of the foundational branding too. Usually when we're rebuilding from the ground up, it's the logo, the color palette, and the fonts. Those are the basic building blocks. I never do just the logo. I always include those other two too, because you can't really build anything else out if you don't have those details. So color palettes, I usually say, 3 to 5 colors is a good start. You want to have a good mix of, depending on your business, what the exact tones are, but saturate colors and more muted colors, some bright colors and some neutral colors. So you want to have a good balance just for versatility. So you can have, colors that work good as backgrounds and colors that work good as pop buttons and, things like that. So you just want to make sure that you have good versatility in it.
Colors seem to be a little easier to determine than fonts, because a really effective font is something that brings the image of that business to life in sort of an animated way, perhaps, right? And a font can really enhance a brand in so many ways. And there are thousands of fonts out there. I mean, you obviously are a designer and you've studied fonts. I mean, it's part of your coursework. You've worked with it for years and years and years, and you have such a working knowledge of all these different fonts. And you'll look at a business, you'll look at a client, and maybe it pops right in your head saying it should be this. Whereas
it does sometimes, yeah.
I would think so. But a client, I mean, their font knowledge is probably limited to the fonts they're using on their computer. It's Helvetica,
the drop down in Microsoft Word,
it's Courier, it's okay, but it's so much more than that. It's an artistic, obviously, a list of things, and so the sky's the limit for fonts, probably.
It is, and there's this quote I really like. I don't remember exactly, of course, now what its word was. Something about like, if you're choosing a font for, a flower shop, you don't want a font that looks like a garden. You want a font that looks like it's somebody who works with the dirt, So you don't want to be too literal. You don't want like cartoony fonts.
Cutesy, yeah.
You don't want to go cutesy or, that kind of stuff. Fonts can be more understated and more powerful that way. I think they don't have to be like in your face. I do think a custom font for the logo can be really powerful, but for like your everyday fonts for like your website and your menus and stuff, readability is the biggest thing. You just want to make it easy to read. I see script fonts sometimes used a lot, and they can be really hard to read, especially when they're small on a menu. Like, that's not doing anybody any favors. So always keep readability in mind.
Now, do your clients see the need or the effectiveness of using their logo on every single thing that leaves their restaurant as a lasting reminder? We're talking about takeout containers, coffee cups, whatever it is. It's like if something leaves that restaurant, it's a lasting impression and you want them to remember you. I mean, I always thought that was really money well spent. It should come out of a marketing budget. So many pizza restaurants perhaps just get the generic pizza box from their supplier, and there's the big fat Italian chef going, and pizza, and it's got the picture of the pizza on the front. No, It's like you started your business for a reason, and there's a story behind what you're doing. And that's part of branding. It's like, tell your client, your guests, what the story is, because the romance of your business will capture their imagination. I mean, we always ran our business that way, and we wanted to spread that story everywhere. And you may think it's interesting, and that your customers will. And that's something else that sets you apart from the competition. I mean, is that a recommendation that you have to make very often, or does that even come up?
It does come up. I will say, depending on, their specific budget, will determine whether they can do like fully custom packaging or need to do, more budget friendly options like stickers that they can put on things, or, coffee sleeves or something, rather than an actual cup that is custom. But there is always an option or some way to add your little branding touch to everything. So yeah, I always recommend at least finding a way that works for the budget and the practicalities of the business. Absolutely.
Now, where do websites come in? Because everyone's got a website, and that is probably one of the most powerful tools to promote a business because, people are going to websites all the time. Hopefully you've got a menu on there. Hopefully the website is mobile optimized and up to date too. There's a showcase for the colors, the logo, the font, the image,
the vibe, the story. Yeah.
I've always believed that a great restaurant website brings the experience to life for the guests before they walk in the door, before they even drive to the parking lot. That's your showcase.
I don't know anyone who goes to a restaurant without checking out the menu on the website beforehand. So they are going to your website. Sure. And if you're not utilizing that as like a platform for your brand, really, you're really missing out because that is one of the first impressions you make.
Yes.
On somebody. And like 94% of a first impression is based on visuals and design and visual appeal. So like before they read any words, before they know your story or see what your menu offers, that first, visual wow is where you have the chance to make that impression. So like, yes, absolutely take advantage of that. Pay attention to your website for sure.
Does it begin there for you sometimes? Okay, a client contacts you and you do a little research in advance before perhaps your first meeting, and you obviously go to their website and you say,
yes, absolutely.
Okay, that is my first impression. I'm putting myself in your customer or your guest's head right now, and I'm going to tell you what I think when I first go to your website. And then, okay.
I'm usually a little more tactful than like
I know, I'm being really direct. I'm passionate about this stuff. And it's like, this is what I think about when I'm thinking of a new restaurant to go out to dinner and I go to their website. It's like being in the business, one, you're sort of critiquing what you think you see and what you think the experience is going to be like before you get there. And, a decision is made or broken by maybe that first impression of going to the website. So I'm not saying that you actually execute the website for people, but I'm sure you help them. Oh, you do that as well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Because I know you're this amazing designer with food and beverage businesses. And I didn't know that you were also.
Yeah, I'm one of those unicorns that can both design and code. So yeah.
Oh, wow. That is a unique skill set. Well, pay attention, audience. Chances are you can get a better website by contacting Amanda. That's great.
There are so many website builders that are user-friendly for people that aren't designers or coders these days. I really don't think there's a good excuse to not have a good website these days.
No question.
There's drag and drop builders, plug and play, like they're so easy.
I ask my very first question to them is, what business are you in and what are you selling? And that sounds like a trick question. And of course, the answer that you would expect, and our audience probably is expecting here, is, yeah, I'm a restaurant owner, a manager, and I sell food and drink. And I stop them right there and I say, wait a minute, when I ran restaurants, I was not in the business of running a restaurant. I was in the business of running a business. Those are two different things. And I didn't sell food and drink. I sold entertainment, consistency, and a whole lot of good times. And that was a paradigm shift for them. So paradigm shifts, right? We want to build a brand. We don't want to run a restaurant. That is like so foundational. That is so intuitive. That is so creative. That's how you can release the passion you have for your business. And that creates a lasting legacy. It gives you something to pass on if you feel like keeping this business in the family. And just, wow, and obviously if you do this well, you can make your customers your best marketers for your business. They become brand ambassadors for your business. If you can translate the passion of what you're doing and what you're selling and the experiences you're delivering onto a huge guest base, then they're going to be your best marketers. And that's going to save you a lot of money. And you are at the core of all of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I love helping people do that. But yeah, I don't really have anything to add to what you just said. That was
okay.
Awesome.
Let's talk about the importance of professional photography, professional video, if you go down that road, because everyone's got a smartphone in their pocket. And yeah, you're going to snap a picture of the food and you're going to put it on social media, or you're going to use that and put it in a menu. But the quality is super important. The food either looks amazing or it looks average.
Looks brown and kind of,
right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure you would recommend professional photography.
Yes.
It's worth it.
Absolutely. If if it's in the budget, yes. I mean, find the budget if not, because it's very important, I believe. I do think smartphones have come a long way. You can get decent photos from a smartphone, but you still need to pay attention to like lighting in the background, not on a cluttered kitchen counter or something. You want to like just get like a black sheet or something and use it, like drape it so it's seamless and like put the plate on that. And that'll be like one step up from what you were doing before, probably. Yes. But yeah, if you can, absolutely do a photo shoot. There are photographers that specialize in food photography and restaurant photography and interiors. There are videographers that can do B-roll of just like, the nighttime vibe of your restaurant, or, the crowd, or time lapse to see like people going in and out, like whatever it is that you need for your business. There's somebody who does it.
Right. And that goes back to the website, right? Because you don't want average photography and video on your website. It's like, again, you want to bring that vibe to life as if the guest is actually there. I'm in the space. I'm looking at my computer screen or my phone, but I actually feel like I'm there. I love that. That's fantastic.
And restaurants are one area too. Like there is good stock photography of like food and drink and beverage and stuff like that. But restaurants specifically, I don't think that's really a good fit, because as soon as they visit your place, they're going to say, oh, this doesn't look like that photo that was on the website. That was clearly a stock photo. So
yeah, I'm glad you're recommending to avoid that. I mean, you definitely want to take your signature dishes, whatever your specialties are, whatever you're known for, whatever your guest favorites are. We used to always obviously take professional photos of all those things. And if something doesn't ever come off the menu, if it's just like a staple, then this photography can live on and you can use it in a million different ways into the future. You pay for it now and you've got the rights to use it into the future for anything, website, table tents, menus, promotional materials.
There's so many places you can use it. Yeah.
Promotional flyers and posters and all this kind of stuff. It's like, it's money well spent, I think. Let's talk about, how you work with a new client. I mean, what questions, or how should a client prepare to give you the best information so that you can help them to your best ability? I mean, what questions should a client be asking? What do you need to know in advance? Like, let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, I think they need to assess, I guess, where it depends on whether they're a new business or an existing business. Well, for the sake of this, we'll say they're an existing business. If they can, have a sit down and think before we do our discovery call, like what isn't working? Like, why do you feel the need for a rebrand? Because that's going to be what one of the questions I ask is like, why do you feel this isn't working right now? And usually that is very telling. We usually dive deep into that, and it uncovers kind of like, oh, well, we've pivoted because of the pandemic and this no longer works, or, we changed owners or changed chefs, or, something happened, the menu changed, or it can be any number of things, but usually we get to like the root of what isn't fitting anymore and why. And then like, okay, and the next question would be, okay, what do you want your business to be? Like, where do you want to take it? And we kind of start from there. And if we do work together, we dive into the brand exploration, which is all that core brand stuff I talked about earlier. Yeah. That's really always the first step after I sign a client, is to do that. And with that, I send them a big questionnaire ahead of time so they have time to think about it, because I like thoughtful answers rather than just off the cuff short answers.
Yes. But as much detail as possible, right?
Yes. But then we do get on a call and go through it all together, and I dive deeper, clarify parts as needed. So I get a really good picture of this business. And from there, we dive into design. Like once we've got that core brand sorted out, we dive into design, and that starts with the logo design and the color palettes and the fonts. And then depending on, what else they need, that could go into menu design or social media templates or website design, whatever.
Is the brand audit something really, really specific, or is it part of what you talked about a moment ago with the questionnaire? Because when I go to your website, I see that you offer a brand audit, which obviously is a deep dive into what you see, and you start to formulate your ideas, and then you provide recommendations, I believe, to your client and that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's for people who really aren't sure where their brand stands. They're like, maybe it needs some work. Maybe it's okay. They're just not really, they just kind of want an assessment of where it is. They're maybe not quite ready for the design phase, but this will give them an idea of if it's needed or what the priorities are. So that's really kind of its own thing. If they want to, after that, work with me to enact the recommendations that I have, that's absolutely a possibility too. But it's its own thing on its own. It doesn't have to lead into design.
Okay, very good. And you also offer sort of a complimentary quote on different budgets and based on what you see.
Yeah, absolutely. I offer free discovery calls where we kind of talk about your business, what you might need. And then based on that, I put together a quote depending on, what I think your business needs, what you thought it needs, and provide some options there just to see what works.
What's your best advice for operators as they sort of move out of the pandemic now and try to reposition themselves for the future? I mean, every situation, of course, is different, but, we're all in the same situation. 100,000 plus restaurants have closed their doors. This was devastating to our industry, but now there's a lot of vibrancy, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, and everything is just coming back. It's like springtime and all the flowers are blooming and the opportunity is there. What would you recommend for a transformation of a business or how to move forward to set yourself apart from the competition? What's your best advice?
Gosh. I guess if you're not already, show up consistently and cohesively. I mean, that is still my best advice.
Okay. Yeah.
I think at this point, social media is a big gain. So if you're not already there, do that.
That's a whole world unto itself. And I know, I mentioned earlier in the podcast that, not a lot of operators are really strong marketers unless they studied it in college. It's like they're operators, right? They're not human relations experts and they're not necessarily chefs. Some are, obviously chef-owned restaurants are, but it's like we can't be experts at every aspect of our business. But I believe, and I've seen in my own experiences that, I'm an old school guy and I'm not this huge digital guy in the future, but I always had a handful of people on my staff that were really into social media. They knew the ins, the outs. They were on multiple platforms. They were creative people. Some of them even took the initiative to be, posting on a regular basis, and I empowered them to do this. So I wouldn't, my advice to operators would be don't be intimidated by social media. Chances are you've got a person that's really into it. Sit down with that person, give them an opportunity to have the responsibility of representing your business. And as long as you believe in their judgment and you think they have good taste and that they understand
and you're compensating
your brand
them for it.
Oh, of course, that goes with it. But I mean, the resources are there. You don't have to look much farther than your own operation to be able to do this. But it's like that's where it's all about social media, building a following. Building
people,
a database.
Like the word of mouth with that is great. Like if people come to your restaurant and, they want to do a selfie or shoot a picture of their beautiful dessert or their beautiful food or their drink or whatever and post it. And then if you have an account, they can tag you and then other people can find you. Like, it's amazing. Like,
yes. Thank you for touching on the virility, things going viral, all that sort of thing. And that is a great point because you want everything about your presentation to have what I call wow factor, as if you were plating this dish because a professional photographer is coming in to take that photo. You want every dish that you serve a customer to have that consistency, because just know that those camera phones are coming out all the time. People are having memorable special occasions. They're taking selfies, like you mentioned, the food, the drink, the ambiance of your place is all in there. And it's going to show up on social media. So you got to make sure that everything looks amazing, right? That's consistency as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And there's even some, like I'm down in Austin and there's several restaurants in our area that have they've painted a little mural on a section of a wall specifically for like photo ops for Instagrammers, so they can take their photo,
Excellent.
So that's something to consider if there's room or possibility for that in your business too. So
make it fun. And kids are a big part of our restaurant business as well. And, I learned a long time ago that kids often determine where the family goes out to eat. They want to go to the fun place. And if you create these opportunities to entertain the kids, that's going to build your business also. So dioramas, if it fits your concept with, this may sound hokey, but my flagship restaurant was at a ski resort and we had one of those carnival cutout things that we had a carpenter make.
Oh, yeah.
It was in the shape of a
where you stick
mountain.
your head through. right?
Yeah, exactly. You'd have the whole cutouts and stuff.
Kids love that. Yeah.
There was a skier going down this really steep mountain, like going off a rock cliff. And then there was a mountain climber climbing up the other side with the whole cutouts. And the kids, they would do this. Even the adults got into it, and that showed up on social media. So yeah, great opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah.
You never know what's going to catch the public's imagination and how that's going to help build your business and build your brand. So I'm glad you brought that up. We've covered a lot of ground today, Amanda. Is there anything that we've missed? Anything you want to talk about in terms of branding or strategic, a direction that businesses might want to take? Anything that we may have missed or you'd like to touch on in more detail?
I think just reiterating that core brand, sitting down and figuring out your core brand, the values that drive your business, the qualities you want to be known for, the personality you want your business to give off, why you're here, why you're different.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you being a guest. And you're also our latest guest instructor to the Restaurant Rockstars Academy. So I'm really proud and pleased to have you on board. And you're creating a series of videos for our Restaurant Rockstars Academy all about brand building. And this is all obviously information that will help restaurants build their brands, build their strategies, get that consistent cohesiveness going. So thank you for that as well. And I look forward to posting all those as soon as they're all complete.
Yeah, we did that first one. I'm just working on the rest of them now. So.
It was very informative and very well done. So for our existing clients that have Academy memberships, it's going to be there very shortly. And for those of you thinking getting the Academy, just know that Amanda is creating a series of videos on brand building and strategy that'll help you rock your business. So thanks so much, Amanda. It's been my pleasure hosting you. And that was the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. We'll see you all in the next episode. Stay tuned. Wow, Amanda, thank you so much. You provided us today with all the foundational elements to build a strong brand in our restaurant, something that is vitally important as much as the quality of the food and the service we provide our guests and the comfortable ambiance. It's all about that all-important marketing piece. And again, I recommend you're building a business, you're building a brand, and that is a competitive advantage. Today's episode brought me back to business school where I learned the foundations of marketing. And then I went on to work for a top advertising agency in Los Angeles, and I applied these techniques and these lessons relentlessly to my business, and it dominated the competition. So here's an episode that'll help you lay the foundation for strong branding in your restaurant. That's a system. Marketing is all about a system. And once again, it's not about spending all this money on non-trackable advertising such as radio and print and TV. It's about strategically putting elements in place in your business that will attract your customers' attention, will bring them back in again and again, and lead to positive online reviews. Well, if you're not great at this yourself, it's all available at the Restaurant Rockstars Academy. We have a complete marketing section that delivers powerful return on investment for very little money spent. Lots of proven ideas that I put in place in my properties for over 2 decades. So check out the Restaurant Rockstars Academy at restaurantrockstars.com. Thanks again to our sponsors of this week's episode, 7 Shifts, the all-in-one labor management platform, and Cisco. Thanks so much to our sponsors, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.